Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway.
Welcome back to Paris History Avec Hemingway. I'm back with Claudine, and today we're talking about the liberation of Paris. I'll let Claudine take it from here.
Yeah, so this week is the 79th anniversary of the liberation of Paris that happened in 1944. So next year will be one of those big anniversaries. But in 2019, the 75th anniversary was celebrated with there was just wonderful stories and remembrance, and the international news was in Paris. So I'm sure they're going to do that again for the 80th. But I always think that, why don't they just do the same thing for every year, because it's a pretty big event and a lot of people gave their lives for it.
I would think the same thing. I mean, it's huge. It could be like our Bastille Day, they should do something.
Yeah, but it's only and I'm sure it's all about the media, because they all like the big fives, the fives and the tens.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, 80 years, it's pretty momentous. And the fact that, pretty much that entire generation is almost gone, which is really sad. But if you want to get a really great idea of what it was like during that period of time in Paris during the liberation, there is a fantastic museum, which we've talked briefly about before, the Musée de la Libération de Paris. It's up in the Place d'Enfants-Rochereau, and it's really close to the Frederic Berthollet's Lion of Belfort statue monument that he has in the middle of the street. But it's also right across the street from the catacombs. That's what most people know about.
Yeah.
Most people that have gone. But it opened on the 75th anniversary. So it's just 4 years old now. It opened on the 75th anniversary of August 25th, 2019. The former museum, it used to be a museum, opened long before that. It was up at the Gare Montparnasse. And so it was really kind of hidden away and nobody really ever went. It was open August 24th, 1994 for the 50th anniversary. So it was there for a little over 20 years, because it was closed for quite some time when they moved it. But it's also it's like 3 different museums. The name is very, very long. But it also includes the Musée Jean Moulin. In 2015, they decided to move it, to where you see it today. It's in a really cool building, again, right across the street from the entrance to the catacombs. But it's in the Pavillon Ledoux, which was built in 1787 by architect Claude Nicolas Ledoux. And it was one of the 50 barriers that went around the city of Paris that were called the General Farmers Wall, that basically when they came through there, the farmers had to pay taxes.
Oh, wow.
And there's only a few of them left in Paris. And this is one of them that you can still see today. It's neoclassical, and it has its twin right across the street, which is also used for the catacombs. And then there's only 2 other ones that remain in the city. When Ledoux designed this, he also designed the Rotunda Pavilion that's in the Parc Monceau, which is a really beautiful one that's just right there at the edge of the park. And that one is named after the designer, but now it is known as the Barrière d'Enfer, which is the barrier of hell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That way about taxes too.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, that's just so strange to think, because, and that's like, Montmartre at one point was outside the city. And it was a lot cheaper to live. Everything, wine and food, everything was cheaper because it lived outside the city, and inside the city, they collected the taxes.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, no. But this just sits underneath it, underneath the museum. There's also another museum that's the underground command base for the Colonel Rol-Tanguy, and it's also near Jean Moulin's former hideout. We did an episode, it might have even been 2 years ago, that we did it about the women of the resistance and the liberation. Yeah, and that was when I talked for the first time about somebody that was still alive.
Yeah, seriously, that was a big day for us.
Yeah. And I think that wonderful woman has since passed on, but we'll put a link to it in the show notes on my website. But when it was moved over to where it is now, that's, again, as I said, it has 3 different museums. So it's the Musée de la Libération, it's the Musée de Général Leclerc, and the Musée Jean Moulin. So 3 museums in one. And the 2 gentlemen, Leclerc and Moulin, played integral parts in the liberation of Paris, as well as Rotongi. And if you want to go there, to go down underneath to the old command base of Rotongi, it is you do have to go and see. It's not open all the time that the museum is, but I'll put that information on the website. But Jean Moulin, if you have probably seen a picture of him before. He is a very dashing gentleman, and you always see him with like his wool coat and his scarf around his neck and a hat. He was born June 20th, 1899 in Béziers in the south of France. He was mobilized on April 17th, 1918 and served in the engineer regiment of World War I. He joined pretty late into the war when it's 1918. It's just a few months before it ends. So he didn't see any fighting on the front lines, but he did see the devastation that happened to some of these villages, especially of the Vosges area, because they were just the Germans, and they were just coming in there destroying them, especially that whole area, in Reims, like Champagne region, and then east of that. A lot of that stuff just got completely destroyed. And if you go to, the capital Champagne in Reims now, the buildings are quite modern looking because most everything got destroyed.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city if you get the chance to visit. It's like 45 minutes from Paris.
Oh my gosh, it's so easy. I mean, you could take the train to Champagne in the time it would take you sometimes to take a taxi to Montmartre from the center of the city.
So true.
But you definitely do when you go to that side of France, you really do see, because you're like, where's all the really old buildings? And that's why, because they were destroyed in the First World War. But after that, until the start of World War II, Moulin served as the sub-prefect for the towns all over France. They moved him all the time. In June of 1940, he was the prefect of the Eure-et-Loire in Chartres, where he was arrested by the Germans because he refused to sign a declaration that a group of Senegalese men killed a resident of the town. He refused to sign it, and so they took him into custody, and it was actually the Germans who killed them.
Oh my gosh, it's horrible.
Yeah, so he was, he was such an amazing man. He was standing on his principles, and he was beaten. He was tossed into jail. He at one point tried to cut his own throat with a shard of glass. A guard saw him and stopped the bleeding, but that is why when I post it, you'll see the picture. Go to my website. This very, if you've been into Paris and you've seen, like, if you've gone to the Pantheon and a bunch of other places, you have seen this photo. But that's why he wore scarves the rest of his life, because he had this horrible scar on his neck.
Oh my gosh, I never knew that. I have seen that picture.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, but he's so handsome, isn't he? So handsome.
For sure.
Yeah, word of how brave he was reached Charles de Gaulle in London, and he requested a meeting with him. And the two first met on October 24th, 1941, when de Gaulle gave him the assignment of uniting the various groups of the resistance, because there was like 12 different groups just around Paris for the resistance. On May 27th, 1943, the first meeting of the Council of the National Resistance Group was held at number 48 Rue de Four, which is also the same street that Gertrude Stein lived on. Less than a month later, on June 21st, in Caluls-Iquet, near Lyon, meeting at the home of Dr. Frederick Dujon was held. 7 leaders of the different fractions of the resistance groups were in attendance, including Jean Moulin, as well as René Hardy, who had just been arrested by the Gestapo. He was then let go, and then he was returned to, and then he came to this meeting. So as they were having this meeting, the Nazis had heard this was going on, and René Hardy was pretty integral to that. the Nazis rushed in, arrested everybody. And when everybody was walking out, in handcuffs, thrown into cars, Rene Hardy basically was just standing there without handcuffs, just watching on. And so he, was supposed to be a resistance leader, but he had been arrested previously. He was taken to Klaus Barbie in Lyon, who was a very famous name from that period of time in the Germans. There isn't any recorded message or information about what went on at that meeting. But after the war, he was accused and taken to trial in 47 and 50, and he was acquitted. But at the trial, he admitted that he had contact with Hardy, and that's what led to the arrest of Moulin.
Oh, we got him.
Bad guy. But upon the arrest of Moulin, he entered the prison in Lyon until the Nazis took him to the Gestapo headquarters, where Klaus Barbie was there, and tortured him. On July 8th, 1943, in the midst of the transfer to Berlin, Moulin died at the Metz train station. And there's a lot of doubts about that being the location, as it took 6 months to create an actual death certificate by the Germans. But he was later returned to Paris, and he was put into Père Lachaise until 1964, when he was moved to the Pantheon. And you could go on YouTube and find some videos of this speech that André Malraux did, and it's one of the most amazing speeches. You're going to need to understand French, but it's one of the most amazing speeches. It's still talked about to this day. Every single time somebody's put into the Pantheon, the French news bring up this speech by André Malraux. And now today, André Malraux is also buried in the Pantheon in the same niche.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. I haven't been to the Pantheon in years. I need to go back.
Oh, it's good, especially when we have a heat wave, because it is cold downstairs where the crypt is.
And just stay underground, guys.
If I could get a signal, I'd probably do my live Sunday walk from there, but you're underground. But it is a really cool place. We should do some more episodes about some of the people that are buried there, because it's really fascinating. A woman named Antoinette Sass was a close friend of Jean Moulin, who was working with him decoding messages. In 1943, her vast connections to the art world, she had set up this gallery in Nice that served as a front for the resistance. He also had a bit of an art collection for a short period of time, and it was in this gallery down in Nice. It included also art of Picasso and Renoir and Maurice Otero, and also Suzanne Valadon. And so those years together, she amassed this huge collection of his personal papers, and she also helped him get things out of his apartment when he had to flee. And she held on to all of these papers with his sister Lori. And so more than 3,000 pieces of info were given to the museum today. And when you go to the museum, it's really cool. You could go downstairs, you see paintings. There's a Maurice Utrio painting that's down there that had been in this gallery. There's his chair. There's all this really interesting, fascinating information. And it's one of those museums, like, you really need to take your time and look and read everything. Because it's not like, the Louvre or the Orsay, where you just walk by and look at paintings. And, these people gave their life to save thousands and thousands of other people. So, it's worth a few minutes to read a little extra.
To respect their lives. I completely agree.
It is. The other gentleman that the museum is, that one of the museums is named after, is General Leclerc. His full name was Philippe Leclerc de Hautecleuc. He was born November 22nd, 1902, and he was always destined for the service. In 1922, he enrolled in the École Spéciale Militaire de Sancerre. That is the one that Madame de Pompadour actually set up, that was right next to Versailles. It was later changed over by Napoleon to the military school. He finished 5th in this class in 1924, and by 1931 he was instructor at the same school. During World War II, he was stationed in Belgium, where he was arrested and later released. He had 6 children. And right after he was released, they all escaped to London. And July 24th, 1940, he met Charles de Gaulle. De Gaulle thought he was an exceptional leader, and he had promoted him to a colonel and directed him to go to Cameroon, where he served on behalf of the Free French forces. The Vichy government sentenced him to death for his action in absentia, which basically means he didn't even go on trial. They're just like, hey, guess what? You're sentenced to death. And if we find you, that's what's going to happen.
Oh my gosh. So what happened?
So Leclerc continued on through Morocco. He returned to Paris in August 1944. It was Leclerc who signed the papers that took in General von Cholitz at the Gare Montparnasse. Cholitz was the German that, is probably the only Nazi officer you can maybe say something good about, because he was the one that was supposed to push basically the button that destroyed Paris. And he was the one who stood up to Hitler and did not do it. And Hitler called him and said, is Paris burning during those days of the liberation? And he just basically, he didn't do it. And he was like, I'm not going to destroy Paris.
We like him.
So we kind of, but, later historians have said, like, maybe that wasn't all him, but, I mean, he did have a good moment.
Good moment.
He had a good moment. But the next day he was walking down the Champs-Élysées next to Charles de Gaulle, right next to him, striding down there. And if you see any photos about that period of the liberation, General Leclerc is in a lot of the photos with Charles de Gaulle and just around Paris. It was Leclerc that Hemingway tried to get in touch with, because he was coming back into Paris to liberate the Ritz. And so he asked to see Leclerc, and basically Leclerc told him to F off.
I love that.
Because he wanted him to give him he wanted Leclerc to give Hemingway cars and guns and men to go in to take the Ritz back. And as we know, the Ritz was already the Germans had already left. There wasn't any issue at the Ritz anymore.
That is so funny.
Yeah. After the war, he liberated the troops in Strasbourg, and then he led the first troops to Hitler's Eagle's Nest and then on to Algeria. On November 28th, 1947, the B-25 he was on crashed in a sandstorm, and he and the 14 passengers were still never recovered. On December 4th, 1947, a national funeral was held at Notre Dame, followed by a procession to the Arc de Triomphe, and it ends at Les Invalides, where he is actually buried today. So he's not in the Pantheon, he's in Les Invalides. But the museum covers all of their stories. It's really fantastic. Chronological is the whole walkthrough. So it goes from the very start of the liberation. It's rather heartbreaking. You have things like the skis of Leclerc and all of these other personal items. But then as you just go into the beginning part of it, it also has like, a tiny suitcase, and it has tiny shoes that belong to a child, and stories about these Jewish families that had to up and leave, Paris and be taken or try to escape. It's really hard. I always tell people you will go through just about every emotion. There is a kaleidoscope of emotions, because you go through the start of it, and it is very heartbreaking. By the time you get out of it, at the end of it, they have videos of the triumphant walk down the Champs-Élysées. There's just constant sounds of people cheering on the Champs-Élysées, just playing over the speakers. And you leave and you just feel like this great sense of patriotism. And it's like, oh, they survived it. They got through it. It's pretty amazing. It does have some, sad stories where, the many Jewish families that were taken to Drancy, and then on to Auschwitz, including, one family of the Setillon family with their 4 daughters deported on November 9th and killed 5 days later. And they left a note saying this is where we were going. And, they have that note there, which is just really, it's so sad. One of my favorite things, and I think didn't you recently do a shoot there?
Yeah, I did a video shoot. I shot some of the clothing for like the women would make like all kinds of patriotic dresses out of old fabric
Yeah.
during the liberation.
The dress that's there is one of my favorites. I would wear that dress today. Maybe change the big poofy shoulders on the sleeves. But it was made by a gal named Marguerite Sabu and her mother. At the start of August, they began to make this dress, hoping she would be able to soon see it, wear it through Paris. The dress, it has paper cutouts of the Eiffel Tower, Arc de Triomphe, the Column of the Bastille, and other landmarks in Paris. She also made a little purse with the cross of Lorraine on it and a clasp that had a rooster on it. So cute. It was 79 years ago, August 26, 1944, that she finally had the chance to wear that dress during the parade on the Champs-Elysees as she watched Charles de Gaulle and Leclerc walk down there. A few lucky soldiers even signed her bag, and they have it there on display. And I absolutely love. I mean, I think that they need to sell that dress in the gift shop.
A remake. Yeah, it's a beautiful dress, definitely worth visiting, and the history is fascinating, as you said.
Yeah, it's really cool. You could also go to the Musée de l'Armée. There's a liberation, sort of a liberation. It's the Cross of the Liberation Museum. So it's everybody that's been bestowed with the Cross of the Liberation, and only a handful of ladies, but Jean Moulin is there, and also Leclerc. There's actually the coat that belonged to Jean Moulin, and his hat, and that scarf, and a big picture of him. It's another one of those, it's just kind of, it's very sad to go through some of those museums. But, as I always say, when we talk about things like this, I think it's also very important for us to see that these are the things that happen, and give, even if it's for a passing 5-minute thought of, these people that gave their life for senseless hatred, among other things, or just trying to stand up against the hatred. It's, I think it's what we need to do.
For sure. And I mean, we need to visit these places and remember these people, and these museums are fascinating, and they are not busy, guys. You can walk right in, no problem at all, to come and see these things.
Yeah. And the Liberation Museum is free as well. It's part of the Museums of Paris. It's free. It's open Tuesdays to Sundays from 10 to 6 p.m. Sometimes if it has a special exhibit, there could be a small ticket price, but this one doesn't do that very often. I went one time, and I think it was like a €4 ticket or something to go see it. But it is, in the Musée de l'Armée, there is a ticket. You could get a ticket for the whole entire property, because there's a few museums in there, and that's also not too expensive. I think it's only like 11 or 12 euros, but they're all really great ones, especially if you're in Paris in August or next year, to come celebrate the 80th, during if we've survived the Olympics.
If we survive the Olympics is right.
Yeah, they are doing this weekend in Paris. They did a test for the triathlon. In the Seine. They jumped in the Seine, and I went down the other day and watched it. I didn't see them. I needed to be on the other side, and because everything was blocked off. So they jumped into the Seine. They swam from the Pont Alexandre III to the Pont d'Alma. And from there, they got out. They ran up and around the Arc de Triomphe, down the Champs-Elysees, then came back, and then got on their bikes, and then went on the left bank up down Boulevard Saint-Germain and Rue de Bac, and then back along the quay. I went down. It was pretty cool to see that. I mean, obviously it's going to be a fraction of the people that'll be here next year, but I haven't heard anything on the news yet of people coming out of the Seine now have an extra ear, but it's early. Maybe they're going to keep medically testing them this week.
Yeah, seriously. There's no amount of money to make me jump in the Seine. I mean, they have cleaned it up. I'm by the Seine every day doing photo shoots, and it is much cleaner, I will say, than 10 years ago. It's clear. There are fish. There used to be no fish.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, but the thing is they were supposed to do this weeks ago, and they didn't, because we had like a week of nonstop rain, and they said that the river was bad. because you had all this runoff from the rain. And so, all the things, from the street and everything just gets into the water. And they said it wasn't safe.
Well, let's hope there's no rain during the Olympics.
I know. It's like, oh, I don't know about that. But yeah, I made a video of it and posted on my Instagram, and I had a bunch of people saying like they wouldn't do that. I was like, the only way I'm going is if I pushed.
My body is a temple.
There's no way I'm going into the Seine. It just seems gross. And I don't know a single Parisian that thinks it's a good idea. Do you?
Didn't people used to jump in there to like literally kill themselves?
Well, they still do.
Oh my gosh.
They still do. I sometimes walk down, on my way over to the Louvre, and sometimes I see, the police in their boat going up and down the river, and then you see something on the news later that they, I saw them one time, they pulling a guy out that was, still moving, thankfully, but yeah, they still do.
Yeah, I saw one morning during a photo shoot, they pulled somebody out of there. Oh, he was not moving. Yeah, good luck with that, guys. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, that's for sure.
The whole thing about it, but they're going to do the cycling. The cycling race is going to go up through Montmartre, and they're going to be doing that test sometime soon, I think, too.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't think they'd do anything up in Montmartre because it's such a hill.
Cycling is perfect, but keep an eye on it, because the other day I went out like 7:30 in the morning on Friday, and it's August, so it's nice and empty. But there was places I couldn't go through even on foot. So
on the weekends I don't even go outside in Montmartre. There's so many.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. So, but it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in, and check out ClaudineHemingway.com for more information. Hire her for a private tour, go on her live walks, join her Patreon, and tune in next week, guys.
Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, ClaudineHemingway.com.